How does strategic portfolio management relate to project management? I think what stunned me was it wasn't a rhetorical question. For some of us, it's a purely rhetorical question, and it's a great opportunity to talk to people about what strategic portfolio management really is. So, we're going to just take a slice of this, just a small slice, because it's a huge topic. And I'm starting to get that more and more in some of my classes and after some of my speeches, and that really worries me. And here's why. Portfolio management means that the organization has a handle on all of the projects and programs that are being executed in the organization in order to achieve their strategic goals. Doesn't that sound like it should make sense? But sometimes what they're doing is they're holding on to a bunch of strings from a skein that is frankly unraveling like crazy. And the best they can do is hold on to it so that they know how many there are and kind of roughly what state they're in. That's not strategic portfolio management. That's more like portfolio corralling of cats. Strategic portfolio management means that the underlying relationship between the strategic objectives of the organization and every single project that supports that strategic objective is identified, put together, and prioritized. Let's face it, nobody has all the money, time, or talent that they need in order to execute everything they would like to do in order to achieve their strategic goals. So, prioritization is called for. And that was how I learned my first lesson about the importance of strategic portfolio management. I was handed a project that was fairly high up on the list in terms of priority. As a matter of fact, a couple of people said they didn't understand why they even had to list its priority because it was that self evident. Well, here's what wasn't self evident: whether or not somebody was going to try and, shall we say, coax somebody off of my team onto their team. It had a lower level of priority. It did not have a need for that individual's particular talent set right now. What it did have was somebody who, as the project manager, felt that they needed to get a handle on as many of the subject matter experts as possible, because that way, when they did need them, they'd be right there. So the individual went on a charm offensive and convinced the functional manager to go ahead and reassign that person to their project. I went to the functional manager and I had a little chat with them about the level of priority of the project she just took that individual off of versus the level of priority of the project that she reassigned them to. Now, a couple of things that this taught me. One, this whole conversation about strategic project management and strategic portfolio management cannot happen in a vacuum. Everybody has to know. Everybody has to be clear about what the priorities are, because the stunned response that I got was, wow, that's not what he said. I've gotten over it to a certain extent, obviously not completely. The thing is, charm offensives still work. And in the absence of good, solid strategic portfolio management, it'll continue to work. Worse, we're busting our buns and having our team give their heart and soul and wonderful work to projects that might be important, but might not be as important as some of the things that we haven't gotten to yet, because we're spending all our time on the ones at this level of prioritization when we need to be spending the time on ones at this level of prioritization. No single person is going to be ultimately responsible for the snafus that happen as a result of a lack of strategic portfolio management and the direct ties between the strategic objectives of the organization and each of the projects that supports it. Well, nobody, that is, until something really goes disastrously wrong. They'll always find somebody to be responsible at that point. But as a project leader, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're very, very clear about that connection between the strategy and your project's objectives, and that you've communicated it clearly to all of your key stakeholders, which of course includes your team members. If you have to, have a separate chat with your team members about the direct connection between their day to day contributions and the achievement of those strategic objectives. And don't stop there, because achieving those strategic objectives, there's a reason we want to do it. And generally, that has to do with the overall health of the organization, or, not being slapped on the hand by some regulatory body. Think HIPAA. Either way, achieving those strategic objectives plays into the longevity and the health of each and every person's career in the organization. So tie it all the way back to their personal elements of concern. What motivates them? They tell you they're just there for a paycheck. That may be their primary motivation, but it's not their only motivation. So find out what the secondary one as well. If they tell you they're just wedded to the purpose of the organization, that is awesome. But if they're busy trying to figure out if they're going to have a job or if they're going to catch somebody else's sniffle, that good God, maybe something worse than a sniffle, they're not really thinking about their personal relationship and their professional relationship with the objectives, with the mission of the organization. So can anxiety and lack of motivation actually stem from and then create a vicious cycle when strategic portfolio management and project management are not lined up? Oh, yeah. And my hairdresser can tell you, I've got the grades to prove it. Okay, hopefully you can't see them right now. But it is not scar tissue that you want to get. So be proactive instead. Be very, very clear about what the tie is between your project's objectives and the organization's strategic objectives. If you don't understand what it is fully and you don't feel confident conveying it, then go ask your manager or the sponsor for a little bit of feedback. Tell them, this is what I think it is. I want to make absolutely sure, because it is going to be the hallmark of the communications between me and the rest of the team. So I want to make sure I get it right. That's one. Step two, then communicate it to the rest of the team. Keep it front of mind. And remember, some of your key stakeholders are likely the managers that your people actually report to, the ones that do their performance review. Those are also your key stakeholders. So make sure that they understand where your project is in that prioritization. So one, make sure you are clear on it. Two, help make sure everybody else is clear on it. And three, be transparent. If something happens and your project's prioritization slides a little, let everybody know, because that slide in prioritization may result in some changes of assignment. And in a well-run portfolio management organization, it will likely do that. It's not great. And remember, every time you lose somebody off the team, you go all the way back to the same stages of team development again. And kind of it hurts sometimes. But the goal of strategic portfolio management and the project objectives that support every single one of those strategic objectives is to do what's best for the organization as a whole so that the people within the organization are going to stay as whole and healthy as possible. What's not to love about that? So remember these three suggestions for action. And remember, we try to make sure we've got at least three suggestions for action in every single one of our videos, in every single one of our lessons. It's important to us that you walk away with something that not only gives you a little bit more context, but also gives you a plan of action that you can execute on immediately. If you like that approach, please subscribe. We release videos pretty frequently, but not always on a regular schedule. Sometimes something's just, oh my gosh. And we sit down and record it right then and release it right then. So if you want to get word on when a new video is going to drop, please subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of the community. Every single one of these videos is based on the feeling and mission that leadership driven project management is not only one of the smartest ways to apply project management as a profession, but it's also a way that your project management career can have longer legs. Approaches will come and go, tools will come and go. What won't change is that in every project, you're responsible for achieving the objective with people. I'm Kimi Hirotsuzinski. Thanks for joining us in this latest lesson from the Leadership Driven Project Management Initiative. I look forward to seeing you again soon.